Well, hello everyone. Hi there. Welcome. Welcome to the Canon Creative Studio here at Sundance 2026. Woohoo! My name is Cindy Bear, and I am actually the event specialist at Canon Burbank. So if you're in the Los Angeles area, we just wanted to let you know that Canon Burbank is available to you. So we are a community hub for filmmakers and photographers, and we do all kinds of great events like the ones that you're going to see here at Canon this week. So besides presentations and panels and workshops, we also have screenings for projects that were shot on Canon. And you can schedule an in-person demo if you wanted to check out gear before you buy it. And if you have an idea for an event, come talk to me. I'll be at the back over there, and you can pitch me an idea. And we also have a QR code on the banner, so you can be notified when we're doing events. You can come and check them out. So I hope to see you there. And with that, without further ado, our amazing moderator, Jay Holben from American Cinematographer magazine.
You guys can do that all day long, and I will just absorb it and milk it as much as I possibly can. As Cindy said, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for being here at the Canon Creative Studio. My name is Jay Holben. I am an associate member of the American Society of Cinematographers, and I am the contributing technical editor to American Cinematographer magazine. Whew. Well, that's a lot to say at noon. So it is my honor to host this panel. This is our second panel on documentaries. It is Spotlight on Documentaries, the sequel. That got no laugh whatsoever. I thought it might, but no, it just bombed. Anyway, it is great to be here with these three gentlemen to talk about two films. We're going to talk about Kikuyu Land with Mr. Andrew Brown. I didn't give it a whoop. I told you, I will milk that all day long, so get ready. Brad and Ben, you were both with TheyDream. You guys had your premiere last night. Congratulations. And that's it for my job. You guys talk now. Go ahead. Tell me about your film. Tell me about TheyDreams and how you got involved in that project.
So, hey everybody, I'm Ben Premeaux, cinematographer for TheyDream, one of many. So I met William Caballero, director and star of the film, in 2021 at the McCall Center in Charlotte, North Carolina, as an artist residency. And I worked there, document artists there. And I was actually documenting Will for McCall, and we hit it off. And he asked me to, he invited his family to Charlotte, and we filmed a couple of interviews and some behind the scenes stuff of motion capture and all kinds of things that he was excitedly doing, which was amazing to me. And then over the years, a couple years later, as he was getting funding and conceptualizing the film at McCall, he hired me back to go to Fayetteville and film with he and his mom. And yeah, the rest is history. And then here we are.
And here you are. Well played. Well played.
Yeah, so
You don't come up with
Hey, there we go. Hi, I'm Brad Jones. Wore many hats on the film. It doesn't like me. Anyway, so many hats, from producer to cinematographer, colorist, lead, 3D animator, director on it. So yeah, a lot of things, many more. But I've known William since college, and actually I first met Ben while he was down there at the McCall Center. And that, oddly, was the only time we worked in person together on the film. Everybody on the team, we are spread out around the country. I'm up in like Rochester area, New York, so Kodak, anybody know? Yeah, a couple whoops, yeah. And then we have people in LA, Jordan, another animator that's in the crowd here in Kentucky, and yeah, just we're spread out, and it's 4.5 year long journey, and we collected a really good team. And Will and I have done several projects together, so it's just awesome to be here and have a feature. And the premiere went very well last night. We're stoked. Yeah.
And oh, you're getting serious now.
All right, I can't. Now I can see everybody back there. I am. Well, this is probably not a good way to start. I'm a cinematographer that's also blind as a bat. I just realized when I looked out and I could only see like 30 rows. So I am Andrew Harrison Brown. I'm the co-director, cinematographer, producer, and editor of Kikuyu Land. And
A little closer with the mic.
yeah,
Thank you.
and yeah, I this story actually, Jenga right here is one of our producers. I remember we were in the field. He was a producer that we had on a film called When Lambs Become Lions, which was also supported by the Institute. And he showed me a little video that he had with his phone about ants and the plantation that he grew up, the tea plantation. And we started talking about wouldn't it be cool, and he was telling me a little bit about his childhood growing up in a plantation that was owned by multinational corporations. And then we left it for a few years. And then I met my co-director, B. Wagandu, on, there she is, she just waved. Yeah, we met, I was the DP for a Nat Geo shoot, and she was the producer. And I found out that her family comes from the same Kikuyu community. And we started learning a little bit about her background. And it kind of just snowballed from that. I was at the time working on another film called Between the Rains. And B and I started working on this kind of subtly on the side. And then it just grew into what we have today, and it is premiering tomorrow.
Woo! So, Andrew, I'm going to stay with you. Tell us about what the film is about. It's about the tea plantation, the corporations running that. Give us a little bit of a elevator pitch on what the film is about.
Yeah, so I don't really pitch, so I'm not going to answer that question, but I will talk about the film. What I will say is it's a story about how colonial systems still exist today, that colonial systems aren't a thing that are in our past, but they're very much in play today, and that colonialism never went away. Oftentimes, those powers transferred to multinational corporations. And most importantly, those are big system conversations. But what our film is we really hone in of how those systems are affecting households and telling the story from the front line. We have Mr. Mungai, who's the participant and protagonist right here. He is the elder in the community. And so he has been, for a decade, doing the hard work. He had documents and documents all the way from the 1920s, original eviction letters from the Crown evicting his family. His grandfather, his father were both abducted, killed, and they were removed for their family at the Queen's orders, at her permission. And we look into how that has affected the generational poverty that has affected his community. And the whole story follows B. Wagandu, who is not only an amazing filmmaker in Nairobi, a producer, but she's also a journalist. So the whole film follows her digging into this claim that is trying to reach the courts within her own community, and how that stealing of land is also the stealing of the story of her community. So yeah, that's kind of I don't want to call it a pitch, but that's the film.
Okay, so I just used the wrong word. You did it so much better than me, but that's why you're on that side of the chair. You and Will go way back, right? You've been friends for a long time, and this is a very personal story for him. Tell us a little bit about what the film.
So yeah, a little bit about TheyDream. So William and I first worked on a short that was a precursor to this film. That one was very heavily animated forward. Miniatures. He loves working in miniature scale. He in the films, it's basically like an exploration of like understanding like his world through miniature. So that played into this film as well. But it's really about love, loss, grief, and coming together through art to heal and come back with the loss of loved ones. We started, as many documentaries do, where you have an idea of where the story is going to go, and we were going to go one direction, and life events happened and completely changed how we were going to go, and we ended up where we are today because of these life events, and it changed the story and caused us to actually expand the team and do a lot more live action and mix in the animation. Um, you know, try and accommodate Millie Williams' mother is the main protagonist besides William, and she is a very reserved woman. So it's been awesome to help her kind of come out of her shell through this too. It's been a very cathartic process for both William and his mother.
And Millie was a caregiver for both of her parents and.
So sorry for my voice. A lot of partying last night and celebration because of the premiere. But yeah, so she is a person who was born disabled. She has issues with her hips, like very bad hip dysplasia. So one would think that she'd be the one taken care of, but she was the ever-present caretaker in the family. Her father had a lot of health issues, her mother also, and then her husband was diagnosed with diabetes at like the age of 16 and ended up having kidney and liver failure, and it just got real bad, and she took care of all these people. So yeah, losing some of those family members, it's also about identity too. Like, who are you when you've done something all your life? What are you after that? When there isn't this thing in your life anymore.
Ben, when you got involved, there was already quite a bit of the story told, and you stepped in to shoot some of the end of it, if I remember correctly.
No, I think no, you're good. So, Will's idea for the film came together at McCall. Basically, with storyboarding and coming up, building miniatures, and doing all kinds of things, and just sort of trying to figure out how to tell this story. 20 years of his life, basically. He's been recording audio. He's been recording some video. It's an amazing mix of beautifully shot Canon stuff and also cell phone stuff and all kinds of images that he's put together and in a very interesting way. So some of the first interviews that we shot were at McCall, and we were like, I didn't know that I was even involved at that point. I think like I was doing things, but I thought that this might just be Will's first foray into interviewing his grandmother and interviewing his mother. But as you'll see in the film, some of those very first interviews play a huge role in telling the story. And so, yeah, it was, so I started in 2021, and then he took a couple of years to come up with some more funding, and then I think I jumped back on in 2023 when I filmed a lot in Fayetteville with he and his mom in his childhood home.
And okay, you've already given the plug to Canon. So, what did you use on this, and what do you normally use?
Yeah, so the A-cam was a Canon C300 Mark II, and then at that time I was also shooting with the R5C as speed cam. And I'm a one-man band a lot of time, doing several things at the same time, sound, light, and 2 cameras. So it was having all of that, being small form factor, being able to just like run around and set things up even in a really, really small tight space like a single wide trailer, was huge, and it allowed me to kind of disappear and allow these really beautiful moments between him and his mom take place.
And how do you feel about the interplay between the R5C and the C300?
I think it was great. I mean, Brad did color, and it matches perfectly. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
All right, so I'll throw it to you as a colorist. How is it to work with the Canon footage and to work with multiple bodies?
There we go. I think we're there now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No. So I also was shooting. There was times where I went down to Fayetteville to shoot, and then out in Joshua Tree. So, I'm shooting on the R5C as well. So it was really easy to match everything in post. You know, basically between C-Log 2 and C-Log 3, you can make them look spot on. It's super easy. There's a lot of latitude because even though it's a documentary, some of the stuff we shot, Will wanted to push more emotion in, so we stylized the coloring a little bit, not too much, but it gave a lot of flexibility. I could push stuff where he wanted, and it didn't break down. And the fact that the small, like Ben was saying, the small form factor is great because Millie is such a reserved person, and if I couldn't imagine bringing like some of the big cameras that were set up outside there and having that in her face, she would have just locked right up or run for the hills. I don't know which. Just having these almost photo camera size cameras and being able to, have her like forget about them. And yeah, her home is a single wide trailer, so tight space, and just being able to create the room and have the space to get the shots that we wanted. And yeah, quickly set up and change because we were constantly moving, constantly changing stuff. Will always wants to try different setups when he's recording interviews, just get all the angles.
And Andrew, you had to be pretty careful about being low profile when you're out at the plantations, right?
Yeah. That's why I shot the whole thing on red. And
and thank you very much. Appreciate everybody coming out today.
Yeah, no. I shot our documentary on the C400. Probably about 80% of the work. When we needed to be a little bit more streamlined, we shot on the R5C. And it was really, for the most part, just 3 lenses. All just RF lenses, zoom. I had the 50 millimeter, which is great low light, especially when you're pairing it with like a triple native ISO that could like pretty much push. We didn't want, some of our story is obviously in the plantations. We are sneaking around. As I said, Jenga grew up there. He knows the back roads. He knows the rhythms of the plantation, the security measurements, the patrols. These multinational corporations, and especially in the global South, run as their own governments, go unchecked. So we had to be very low profile. While we were wiring up women that were working the tea fields, trying to pick enough to hit their quota. When they fall short, there's sexual abuse by the farm managers. There's a lot of neocolonialism. So everything was about being discreet, not just for ourselves, but mainly for them. We wanted to make sure that they had space to tell the stories that they wanted to tell and feel comfortable and empowered without feeling like they were sitting on a stage. There's no supplemental lighting or artificial lighting. And so you really do have to trust the camera. You have to trust the technology to pull this off. In places that don't have electricity at nighttime, things like that, you might just have a single candle lit or a single solar power globe in the corner. That was just the technology alone allowed us to tell stories that otherwise I can't imagine how their voices would be shared otherwise, honestly.
I think for both of your films, there's a sensitivity to the subject, and there's a delicate nature of interviews and being obtrusive. How do you handle that with a delicate subject? Are you trying to? How do you build the trust, and how do you handle your interviews?
Well, a lot of times, it's just me, and I'm there. But in this particular case, Will was there and had a very good, obviously, sweet relationship with his mother and making jokes. But I'm also, I'm a former teacher and educator. I'm a people person. Like I really love people. I love being around people, and I like to try to make people feel as comfortable as possible. And whether that's just cracking jokes or whatever right off the bat, but it's just really, nodding and trying to be as respectful and supportive as you possibly can while you're doing these interviews is really, really important. When we were in the trailer, not necessarily with interviews, but with these reenactments that Will so ingeniously came up with of like having his mom reenact a voicemail of her mother. He was basically he would replay it and direct her to lip sync it as it was going, and man, she became just this hilarious star. It was just this really beautiful thing that was happening right in front of us, and I just sort of had to disappear and not crack up because they were cracking up, and he's just such a patient and sweet director to his mom. It was really fun. It was really fun.
It's a very unique situation.
It was. I mean, I was like, when I would tell people what he was having her, he was having her do, I was just like, can you believe it's such an amazing way to experience or to work through grief, to think about trying to fill someone else's shoes or to let that person go was just a really unique way to deal with that subject.
Yeah, and I know you want to jump on this one because I can't imagine that.
Yeah, I mean, some of Ben's stuff was used in that case for animators to either use as a reference or to rotoscope over, or just so many things. Like the film is, I've been saying it's very digitally handcrafted because there's some actual hand-drawn characters in 2D. There's 3D characters that everybody's been confused about. They are not real felt. They are simulated felt, and that has been the biggest compliment. But yeah, I mean, another awesome use of the cameras that we were using was to actually digitize some of the physical sets so that in post, because of them being miniature, to offer other shots for us down the road when inevitably William's like, man, I wish like we could do this. I'd be like, hey, we can do that. So using like Gaussian splats, if anybody knows that, we can get really nerdy after the talk. I won't go into it now because I'm a big nerd. But it was one of those things he was hesitant about using it until I showed him the power of it. And the bigger the sensor, the better the resolution of a splat scan. So yeah, we were able to take these miniature sets and reshoot them, and I actually like simulated various Canon lenses digitally too to sort of fit the style, like they were actually being shot miniature. So yeah, it's fun.
I'm not biting on the lens nerd thing. I'm not doing it. Andrew, as far as the sensitivity of
Yeah, so my approach to documentary, when I first got started and I was trying to figure out my own artistic approach, I heard a lot of verite filmmakers talk about fly on a wall and disappearing, and I was like, my God, they are amazing. And then I started shooting documentaries, and I started shooting documentaries with them, and I discovered that they were all full of shit. The process of verite filmmaking is invasive. And so typically I try to start with acknowledging this. What feels, at any time you're watching a verite film and it feels intimate for you, I guarantee it was awkward and intrusive for the participant in front of the camera. And so let's start with acknowledging that and not pretend that I'm a film god that can disappear. We're humans, and we're gonna try to keep create space for you. We're gonna try to make sure that we're thoughtful. But the closest way that I could, like the closest thing before I started making documentaries, the closest thing that I could say it felt like was, I remember in 7th grade, I went to my first middle school dance, and I danced with Veronica Anderson, and I stepped on her feet about 5 times, and I was petrified to go to the dance. And then the whole time I was like, I'm screwing it up, I'm screwing it up. So that's how I describe it oftentimes. Like, this is gonna be an awkward dance. Sometimes we're gonna try things and it's not gonna work. You say, ouch, I don't like that. And we'll find a new rhythm and we'll figure out kind of as we go, but let's not try to make it something that it's not. And then just trying to have that patience, moving at the speed of trust, where they have opportunities to retell their story. Some days you film something and you love it and you're married to it, and then the next day they say, actually, that's not for you. I decided that I want to hold on to that. Can we share my story in a different way? And you just have to be open to that process. That's why every film that I've done has taken, 3, 4, 5, even 6.5 years of verite. You're talking 800, 900, even over 1,000 hours, because they need that space to really try things out and figure out what story they want to tell and with what voice. And so that's kind of my approach. Let's just acknowledge that none of us are film gods. We're all just clunky middle school dancers trying to do this thing.
Well, speak for yourself, but thanks to Veronica for your career. That's amazing.
Yeah, so I wanted to jump into. I think it's also just treating everybody like a human in front of the lens, because, I mean, there's a reason usually we're behind the camera, right, guys? Like, it's not fun to have a camera in front of your face or a lens, and then it's awkward. And when you're doing documentaries, these people aren't used to that either. They're not actors. That this is not their life. So yeah, just building that comfort and trust with them, being like, hey, I understand. This is weird. Let's go through this together. And yeah, just acknowledging that and being empathetic. And if they need to pause, give them a pause. Step back, give them room, and yeah, just treat them like humans.
Yeah, I think that's what was so great about being on set with Will, was that he just knew how to talk to his mom, knew how to make her feel comfortable. So it was easy for me to just sort of allow the cameras to do the work and step through it.
You brought up something that is really interesting to me, which is the story changed while you're making the film, right? You going on one path, and then you allow the film to tell you where to go. Tell us a little bit about that.
When we started, it was going to be much more. Actually, it was going to be a very broad film about his extended family and their dreams and where they are versus. So William's grandparents, came over to New York, lived in Brooklyn from Puerto Rico, and then had dreams of grandeur, as one does when you come as an immigrant, or technically not immigrants, because they are part of the country, even though our government doesn't necessarily acknowledge that. And then moved to Fayetteville, seeking that greener pasture, and did it happen? And that was the first version of the film. And then things happened, and it then became what it is with the loss of some family members and the grief and identity, and just it unfolded on itself. And that's when we reached out to Ben, because we were going one way and not as much cinematography was going to be needed. And then when these events happened, we're like, no, we got to change. It's got to be much more of a tapestry. We got to weave different stories together. And yeah, it just evolved. And that's the beauty of documentary. You go in and the story's going to change, and it's going to change you too. That's the beauty of docs.
And Andrew, you brought up kind of the idea of a subject who gives you something beautiful and gold, and then the next day says, I don't want that to be shared. How do you handle that? I mean, do you then walk away and always trust what they say, or do you say, it's on the record, you're kind of, it's there now?
Trying to think of two answers, because when you say that, my first reaction is I have autism, so it's very like, okay, let's move on. So that if I have a superpower, that might be it. But really, it's the understanding that I can only empathize with him. The idea of someone showing up and coming into your home, that is so sacrificial. Who am I to say what they give to me? And it's all about consent. Consent is a moving thing, and it can change at any time. And so, the story, if we get stubborn in what we want, and if we get ahead of the participant, then I think the film will show, and it won't feel authentic, and it will feel like there was an agenda and that it was pushed and overproduced. And that's just not really, that doesn't intrigue me. So it's, I I don't know. There's just a little bit of trust that goes into it, and it sounds so cliche, but trusting that nobody knows their story better than them, so allow them to tell it in the way that they can sit with. And you know, things like this. Mr. Mungai is here. I don't want him to sit in the the a screening and people ask him why this. I don't want him to say because the white dude told me that I needed to do that. Not good marketing. So it's just this trade, you know, it shouldn't be transactional. I'm not showing up and saying, you said you would give me your time. It's an exchange, and exchange has to be a give and take that has a good return policy, I think.
That's also, I believe wholeheartedly that when you're telling somebody's story, you don't schedule that story, right? You don't walk in and say, hey, I'm going to spend 2 hours with you on Tuesday and you're going to tell me everything. You have to really invest in being part of their life to get that story. Would you agree?
Yeah, I typically would agree, unless you have a participant like Mr. Mungai. He directed all of his scenes. He would tell us what we were having for breakfast, when we can begin filming, and he would say, today's agenda is that we're going to dive into that. So he had full ownership. Whereas, you know, we really follow 3 stories. There's Biwa Gandu, who she is the co-director and the journalist. You know, she was driving towards a goal, working on a story, so she kind of drove herself. And, you know, she was, Mr. Mungai is an elder within his community, and you can see through his life that very much he holds the answers, very heavy answers to what has happened to his community, and you see the toll that burden has had on his life and within his community. Whereas B is a journalist who's very established in the city and returning home, and it's a bit of a homecoming for her, where she thinks she has answers, but then the more questions that she asks, she's realizing, oh, the story that I held on to was actually given to me by my oppressors. And so she's revisiting that story and discovering it for herself. And then there's a third subject in our film who is a 11-year-old boy who is the son of a tea worker. And it's all about that innocence and the loss of innocence as he moves into adulthood, and he realizes that the dreams that he has and the identity he wants to have for his future, that there's a system much bigger than him at play that has already determined the outcome of his life. And so we follow him, and he doesn't have any answers. He is moving, you know, chasing curiosities and trying to figure out the world beyond the tea plantation that he's not really allowed to enter into. So, you know, each one with the curiosity, you know, with Stephen, it is when we can get in there, when Jenga thinks it's safe to go in there and film as much as their family would allow that doesn't put them in harm's way. With B, she's a journalist, she's willing to push the fold and take a little bit more risk. So sometimes you're working with schedules and then things happen and then you have to try to keep up with the story. So each subject has a different, I would say, a schedule, agenda, flow to it.
And you guys spent years with Will.
This is a very unique documentary, something that I'd never even imagined. I mean, Will was very creative visionary, basically. I mean, just the amount of animations, the amount of scenes, the way that he put this story together. Without him, it wouldn't have come together at all. And it was so unlike a lot of documentaries that I've filmed before, because he was the director and also the star. So it was like this really interesting combination of, you know, responding to his direction, but also letting things play out. So it was just a lot different. It wasn't like following them around. It was like being invited into a home and letting what the action was play out in front.
Really, what sets it apart too is that Will actually takes the viewer behind the scenes. So that's the best way to describe it, is that yes, we're there. He is kind of giving us what he wants ish to be covered. It's up to us to frame it and get it done and that, but he's basically being a subject too at the same time. So there's times where, yeah, his mom and him are reenacting these voicemails or other audio recordings that William has collected over the years, and you see them setting up a green screen and reenacting this stuff, and then it, in the film it'll transition to an animation, and then it pops back. So you really get to see everything happening throughout the film. It's not just a typical doc narrative like following a subject. You're getting to see behind the curtain. So that was a really unique experience, and figuring out how to do that. And make it feel natural too. Like it was, but like not feel forced or like we staged it. It was because we didn't. It was just what we were doing.
Yeah, and I've worked on several films and talked to a lot of people, and they're always like, "We've seen that already. We don't want to see that again." Or typically you don't want to repeat a lot of things, right? You don't want, but the way that the team put this thing together, there's a lot of repetition where you're like, you see the reenactment and then you see the animation and then maybe you go back and see something else again from a different way. So it really allows you to see like this was a process for all of them. It wasn't just this reenactment happened and then the animation happened. It was like you sort of feel their dealing with the grief as it's playing out in front of you.
You brought up not wanting something to be overproduced, which lends me to kind of ask about the nature of the documentary world right now. If you have an opinion on where we are, I kind of see things very much like the narrative world, where there's a big divide between massive big budgets and tiny scrappy independent, and there's not a lot in between. In the documentary world, we have a lot of very slick corporate produced true crime and cooking shows, and then we have stories like your films here. I just told you the whole answer, what I wanted to get from you, but
I can roll with it. But it started with, do I have an opinion?
yes,
Yes,
thank
I
you.
always have an opinion. Yeah, so I think it all comes down to right now, the film industry is at this place where all buyers, all studios are risk averse. They're petrified. And what they do know is if you have a biopic with a Kardashian, it sells. If you have a film that nobody has to watch while they fold the laundry, that sells. If it's a white guy killing his wife, perfect. Beyond that, they want to overproduce and they want security. They want to know where it ends and all that. And so what I actually enjoy is because they're stepping back earlier on, there is open space where the actual filmmakers have more creative control over the narrative. The trick is, how do we fund that to make sure? Because the most money doesn't want to come in until it gets in Sundance. It's amazing how many people call me back once the announcement came out that were like, I don't know if it will resonate. And now they're like, I love it. Because it's risk averse. Now they know how to market it because they can throw a laurel that is attractive onto it, and they think that it will market itself. So any buyers in here, love you. But it would be fantastic if they supported indie films earlier on without bringing such heavy strings that really pigeonhole the story and the narrative into very specific and very predictable arcs. And so that's where I think independent film is right now. I'm optimistic. I think that, control is transferring, and that's a good thing.
I'm gonna be a little bit more pessimistic, sadly. I know, boo. No, I do agree. Like, I think you got to be scrappier as an independent documentarian. Like, it's just like our film had the benefit of receiving a bunch of public media funding, and thank you PBS, ITDS, like all the public media that supported us, Latino Public Broadcasting. Like, without them, we wouldn't be here. And I really, like, with this current administration and their stance about public media, I won't say what I want to say. It's not TV appropriate. But yeah, I don't know with major studios being so risk adverse and how independent media can be produced without the support of public media, they're willing to take risks and tell the stories that would go untold otherwise, and we need that. I think going forward, you just got to be scrappier. You got to find a really unique way to get people's attention and convey the story, because yeah, they want that cookie cutter stuff. But if you have something that is truly authentic and unique, it will always find an audience, and that's the most important part.
Yeah, let's debate. So yeah, I don't believe in the it will always find an audience, because some of the best films that I've ever seen will have 5 clicks on Vimeo, and I'm like, it takes money to market. It takes money to bring in a publicist to not just, if you could have a great film and submit it to great festivals, good luck, but it's a lottery ticket. There's a whole process of forms and grants and all that, and that's a privilege to have the time and the resources to go through that process. The studios they are risk averse, and they're not getting involved early, so there's a massive void. But the beauty of where we are right now is the traditional system is leaving a void that new players are stepping in. Brands like Canon, who have committed a lot of money and free resources to independent filmmakers. I don't know any of that is fact, Canon. But brands are the new studios. They are stepping into spaces, and they already have an audience that you don't have to go to the biggest distributors to get your film seen. So anytime that you see a void opening up, there's always somebody stepping in. And I think that, yes, I totally agree, you have to be scrappy. But it's looking out for who's stepping in. And what I see, the people that are stepping in, it is making it more accessible. We just need more brands to be willing to take the risk that studios aren't. Because audiences want risky storytelling. They want something that they haven't seen, something that's not predictable. They don't want reality TV, and that's the difference in between documentary and reality TV. I can tell you exactly what's going to happen on a reality TV show every season. That's not documentary, that's not independent filmmaking, and there's power in that. And I think it's just us recognizing our power, and that brands want to attach themselves to storytellers that are telling authentic stories.
Thank you for publicly committing Canon to funding documentaries. That's amazing. Yeah, please. Everybody needs some cash. Is there anybody out there who would have a question for one of our 3 extraordinary panelists here? Don't be shy. Put your paw in the air. Not everybody at once, though, because that just gets crazy. And no. Okay.
Yeah, I would say mentorship is very, very important to me. It's something early on I didn't value enough, and I think I took a lot of voices that I didn't need to receive. So over my time of figuring out what type of stories I want to tell, the biggest hurdle and the biggest challenge is figuring out what voices I want to bring in and listen to and actually receive and sit with. And so yeah, like mentorship, there's people around me. Community is everything. And do we want another hot take?
Bring it.
Do it. This is the last time I'm going to be on a panel. I don't like it when there is marketed a film by, unless it was, a film by one single person. It's like, no, there's a huge community. And that's something that's a studio model that says this one person, and it's lifting up people. And what that does is it tells new storytellers that unless you're the Martin Scorsese, you can't make a film. And so I love the idea of acknowledging that it's a huge community. There's people that have been pouring into me and that you want to bounce things off. It's really about just finding who are the people that are trying to put their fingerprint on your work because they can't do it themselves or they don't want to take the risk, but they would love to co-sign if it gets across the line. Pushing those out. And then actually sitting with the people that are asking the right questions. What communities are you trying to tell? What stories are you wanting to tell? And do I resonate with that, on a human to human? Those are the people that are going to look after your development, the stories that you tell. So it's, you, it, I think each one is a little bit different. I use the example of Jenga, like showing me a simple video of Anson talking. We had like this really abstract, metaphorical conversation about the video and the ants and the symbolism and everything. And we worked that into the film that you'll see now. That was one conversation in like 2015, and then I didn't touch it. But that there was like a haunting, and that's what I look for. I want like a haunting in the best way of something that resonates with me, and I put it down, and it just keeps coming back, and that haunting sat with me. So when I met my co-director and the journalist B, once she started talking about our community, it was like, oh, it started feeling what Mr. Mungai said early on. It's ordained. Like this story, it's just falling in place and things are coming together. So let's just go with the flow. So that's kind of what I wait for. I don't like pushing down doors in the beginning. I understand that there's a time for that when you're fighting for the story, but I don't want to knock down doors trying to break into spaces. Yeah, early on.
Back to your mentorship. So, like with our team, William is really good about picking teammates that just we all push each other, and yeah, finding that community. And we've built a really good community. And every project we try to expand it and find people that fit that and push us. And like Jordan worked under me as an animator. There's plenty of times where I've thrown them like, hey, let's learn this new thing. Let's try this new thing. Or they've pitched things to me, let's do this. And I'm like, all right, let's go. And Will, same when it came to shooting things. Ben and I had ideas for how to shoot stuff. Go ahead, do it. And it's just having that freedom, having a good team. That's really what it's about. And then yeah, just the stories. At least in this film, it just happened. A lot of it did. Like we had an idea, like I said at the beginning, and it changed and it kind of fell into our laps. But yeah, there were those moments of little bits of conversations or audio. Like we reviewed so much audio, and Will and I would have conversations being like, we need to do something with this line, and it would just both like we'd listen to it independently because he's in LA, I'm in New York, like. And I'd call him up, dude, I heard this, and he's like, yeah, I was gonna call you about that, or something, along those lines. And it happened, and so you find those moments, and they just resonate and stick with you, and we got to do something with this.
I'll piggyback on the mentorship thing too. I believe mentorship is so important that I actually still teach documentary filmmaking to high school kids. I think that without knowing that this is a viable career and something that you can actually do, and seeing people that look like you making stories, telling stories that are important to you, I think it's the most important thing we can do right now is inspire the next generation. I mean, we're literally watching kids waste away into their phone. I mean, they're just staring into these phones with doing very little. And I want them to be active and engage in their community and tell the stories that they want to tell. And with equipment that can be with things that with actual equipment that can record audio and do the things and provide techniques and all kinds of things that they need to tell their stories. So it's very important. Mentorship is very important.
Thank you all so much for being here. And also, I just want to say, it's a little loud back here, so we can hear each other since the Jamie came here. So I know that's not y'all's job, but we do appreciate you being here. So I'm a newer documentary filmmaker, and I absolutely love this channel. So please excuse me if any of this has been answered already, because I think it's like 15 minutes late. Sorry. I just have two questions. One is, I guess at what point during the story, let's just say your subject decides, like, you know what, this is too much, I don't want to do this anymore. Do you decide to leave the story behind or pivot
No.
No?
No.
Oh God, don't do it. Okay.
Don't do it.
No, I won't do it, but I'm just wondering.
Yeah, you just you want to treat your subjects with trust and honesty, and if they say no, I don't want this, you got to step back and go, okay, we're good, and yeah, move, figure out the next step where the story goes from there. Yeah.
So if that was a year or 2 years of work, you just pause, and then if somehow it comes back in 10 years, then it comes back. Okay, sounds good. The other thing I wanted to know is, okay, if you were starting today, what would you prioritize learning first? As like a lot of us are here at Sundance, and we're eager to learn and to grow. What do you think? Like, go do this, do this, do this.
Ooh, I'm gonna say, I'm in Canon. They're trying to sell equipment, and I'm gonna say, don't buy every equipment that you are told will make you a good storyteller. I early on, the one of the worst thing that you can do for your career is be spending money on gear that doesn't last or is gimmicky. There's a lot of in this space. There's a lot of gimmicks, and it's like early on I was like trying to tell Verite, but I saw a cool Instagram video that says that I need to get a filter and like distort light in front of him, and it's like, yeah. So people are going to try to sell you on gear all the time. I went through Sony, and then I was like really insecure. And I was like, but I have to have Sony because that's the only way to do low light. And it's really easy. Well, actually, if you actually understand the technology, there's many cameras that can do their one thing that they brand themselves on. So then I was like, I got to go to Red because that's what's going to get me past that next. And then I spent all my money and I'm going broke and I can't make a living trying to tell stories because I think that that's the power of the story is the technology. That's BS. Then I settled at Canon. And what I found in Canon is, yes, like you can invest in yourself, but the thing that I enjoy about Canon bodies is they don't age. I plan on having a body and I can use it for 6, 7, 8 years and I'm still learning things about the camera. And I don't buy new gear until I feel like I fully understand what the gear was designed to do. And now I'm limited. I can't do the next part of the story because the gear can't keep up. And with Canon, that just hasn't happened so much. Whereas with everything else, they don't want gear to be scalable with your career. They want you to every year buy the new model with the new lenses, and so then they change the compatibility and all that. And that's what I like about Canon. I also am very much, for the last decade, I've been shooting internationally for half of the year. I spend as much time away as I do in the States oftentimes in many years. And what I love about Canon is no matter where you go, there's people that understand what Canon does. And it's the standard that people understand. So even if you don't speak the same language all the time, it is that common creative language that you can find like common ground on and you can roll into production with. Everything else, a lot of the technology is very intimidating for people who haven't traditionally had access to those tools. Canon's different. You get the quality, but it's also, you have equipment that will last over time. And some salesperson, they cut off my mic because the salesperson, I was just going to say, some sales guy in the back is like, we just came out with new model lenses that you have to have. So now my mic is back. Thank you.
To piggyback off of him, I always like to use. I was big into cycling at one point in my life, still enjoy it. But the one rule that I always used is you invest in the things that you're the most intimate with on a bike. So it's your saddle, it's your cockpit, so the handlebars and your grips. And now my mic doesn't like me. So yeah, in that it's like you can spend on a camera, but I've always found I think glass is the better one to invest in. Like you don't always need the best, but if you buy a decent one, it'll last years. Bodies are gonna come and go. You can always rent them, whatever. And off that, like why I've always like Canon is the one that is my workhorse. Like it sits on my shelf. I've always gone back to it. I mean, I up until recently still had like a 5D Mark II that like I began shooting. Like just get what you can. I got it secondhand. Like just start shooting on whatever you got and then go from there. That's honestly like how I approached it. Like I had a very low level Canon SLR that I shot and just went from there. Um, but yeah, just don't overspend on stuff. Try it all out. And I've worked in other systems, but it's one of those things that like, yeah, I can hand a Canon to somebody and they'll know where stuff is. Or if I'm working in a team, I don't have to go, wait, where did you customize this button to? I can just go over, change the settings so that they all match if I'm in charge, like making sure everybody's matching. So it's just easy. It makes it makes shoots like very easy to do multi-camming or anything like that, having a bigger team. Granted, we were very small, but in the past I've had bigger shoots and it's just simple. Yeah.
Buy all my books. That's the best education for you right there. I'll take one more and then we gotta finish things up. So please.
It's really important. I do have a question for you about your process with films like Kikuyu. What's your process in the beginning with the community about what everybody wants to get out of it? I'm curious about that. If you have some sort of standard process. I always think, my background is in public health, and I always think about what marketing behind what people that are involved.
Yeah, so I think everybody's different what they want to get out of it. What I tried to say is be very honest with what you're able to do. I cannot promise them that the film will be in Sundance or get distribution, but I can commit to a certain approach and like a commitment to meet them where they want to be met at. And then everybody's different. Every participant, I don't know. I think everybody has different challenges, different desires of their life. But if I had to say, what is the one thing? I believe there's a fact about like the human experience. I believe every human, and we can all meet, and I think every subject that I've worked with, every participant, there's one fact that I hold to be true. And it's the fact that I think we all want to be known and loved in return, like known fully and heard our story, and for people not to turn away, but to lean in and then be willing wherever you are to walk through with you in your truth, in your reality, with the story, and just to be recognized that. And I think if you show up and show people, I'm not here to sell a film, I'm not here to make something that elevates my career, I mean, that will come if you're telling good stories. I do believe that. But if you show up and you actually, again, for me, it's stripping down the equipment as much as possible for profitability so I can keep showing up, so I can keep returning. But to capture their story and then just like listen, follow, and walk with them whatever direction they want to be walked in. And that all sounds so pretentious, but I know that's why we love each other. When you know somebody knows you and loves you in return, that is when you become close. And so it's that same process. And yeah, it's a messy one. We're all human, but it's just acknowledging, hey, I'm not the filmmaker, you're not the protagonist. We're two humans, and I want to hear your story. And I want to help you capture whatever part of it you want to share with the world.
Say thank you for working in public health. My partner works in public health as well, so yeah.
What's next?
Well, we have a panel at 2:00 coming up. Thank you all for being here. Andrew, Brad, Ben, thank you for the conversation. This was fantastic. And on behalf of American Cinematographer and Canon, thank all of you for coming, and come on back.